Good evening. This is Dale Lamb, Gardner Webb. This is Mels 603. It's Thursday, November the 17th. We'll go ahead and get started. I want to cover competencies again. We seem to still be struggling with that. Please remember that you need to initiate your competency folio. Since you are a continuing student in 603, you will only have to put one proof in for each of the 21 competencies. You can choose between the two evidence artifacts listed or open-ended as the origin of those competency proofs. As a guide, please remember under intern materials on our Blackboard menu, I have put some documents for you. I have competency folio artifacts from the 6 evidence artifacts. That tells you where you can find proof examples of proofs in from your evidence artifact work. And I also have open-ended competencies where you can find proofs of competency from the suggested list of activities for interns during the 400-hour internship at your school. So I have these 2 documents for you. Again, they're under interns. I want to, if I can, go to task stream and show you that you need to request comments. I'm communicating with one of our students right now. Let me do this right quick. Okay, sorry. All right, so what I'm going to attempt to do is get into task stream. All right, and I'm going to use a student. Let's see. All right, so when you sign in to TaskStream as a student, please remember that you go to messages in order to initiate your folio. If you don't remember that, week before last, I covered that for you in depth if you need to go back and see how to create your folio. So please remember that you do not go into your DRF, your regular portfolio. You have to go in through messages to create that. So you click on messages, click on competency template, go to the bottom, click on competencies, and then let's see if I can move this little picture here. And then go to copy, and that will copy it into your folio. All right. And then when you go to folios and web pages, it will be there, and there it is in red. When you click on it, you will see, all right, move this back. All right, you will see the competencies. Please remember, as I've told you previously, you do not do the digital learning competencies. Those won't be live until fall of 17 for those students, but they went ahead and loaded it in there. That's why when you open it up, the links aren't live. And professional dispositions, that's only for students who are in 601. You have dispositions, 6 of them in your regular DRF portfolio where you put your evidence artifact work. So you don't do the last 2. You do the first 21 of these, starting with communication. You write a little blurb about what you did, and then you attach your proof using these buttons down here at the bottom. Now, if you want comments on those from me and or from your clinical coach, you have to hit the request comments button. And when you do that, it's going to give you a list of people, which ones you want, and then you click the one that you want those comments on, and you go to continue, and you pick who you want to see that work. It would be me, that way I'll get it, and whoever your clinical coach is, and then you continue, and I'll get a bit buzz on my phone in just a second. Comments requested again from Tanya, one of my students. So please remember, there it goes, there's the buzz. And so then I would go in and I would make comments on that. Okay. All right, so Amanda's with us. She's using somebody else's computer. I didn't recognize that name, but everybody's welcome. All right. Getting this email. So that's the way it works. That's the way you request comments on those. You need for me and or your clinical coach to see those to make sure that they are appropriate. When it's done, when I review it, I'll send it back and it will say good, excellent, whatever, ready to submit when prompted. So now what that means is you don't have to upload that folder until 6:05. When you get to 6:05, let's see if they've got it loaded yet. Let me get out of this. Uh-oh, here we go. So what you will do is you'll when you get all 21 of those in there, and me or whoever your clinical coach says, yeah, they're all good, then you'll go to your regular DRF portfolio, and there will be a place at that time for you to import that entire portfolio, that entire competency folio into this portfolio, and we will be able to, at that time, you'll be able to submit them for evaluation, and we'll be able to grade them. So don't worry about submitting for evaluation right now. Just work on getting all 21 of them in there and requesting comments from the appropriate people. Yep, there's the notification. So now what I would do, let me log out of this one. What I would do as the person, no, I will submit later. As the person receiving the comments request, I would sign in to TaskStream as your instructor or as your clinical coach. And I go to reviewer status, as you can see. Let's see. And there's Tanya. And oh. And I've already read it. So I'll put excellent. READ, ready for submission for evaluation when prompted. And I'm going to have to move this thing again. I've got a little window here and it keeps getting in the way. And so I have commented on that. And that's the way it works. So go ahead and get started. Again, if you don't know what to put in there, I've got lists under intern materials of potential things that you could put in there. Some students pull parts out of different components. Some put the whole component in there. If they've embedded, like this one, she had embedded her communication proofs in component 1A. She had her email permission from her principal. She had her minutes. She had her agenda from her PLC minutes. Those are all proofs of her communication skills, that she's competent in communication. Now, what she did is she can either pull those out separately and upload them, or she can just because it's perfectly acceptable to put evidence artifact work in there. She's put the whole component in, which is great. Whichever way you want to do it is fine with me. I have one student, he creates a separate document and puts all that stuff on it, and that's fine too. Either way that you want to do it, you can use screen grabs, you can use videos, PowerPoints, whatever you got as proof. And it's all laying around because you've already done the work. So it shouldn't take you forever to do that. So that's how it works. So make sure you get started on your competency folio. I would keep a handle on my internship log, even though it won't be required. You may need that certification of competency time in 605. You never know if you might move schools or if your principal might move, and you folks don't finish until the summer, and we don't want there to be a problem at the end where your principal doesn't know whether to certify you competent or not based on whether you did the 400 hours. Your clinical coach will know to certify you because in terms of certification of competency, because you'll have uploaded all of your competency folio by then. But your principal, you're the next to last group whose principal will have to sign off on this. And so I would hang on to my log. Don't make the log a big ordeal. I would summarize my duties weekly and estimate the amount of time that I spent. Don't make the log a big deal, but you might want to hang on to that so that we don't have a problem in the end. All right. Let me log out of task stream. Okay. All right. Okay. So we are still recording, I see, hopefully. All right, so let's look and see where we are. This is week 11. We start accounting, budgeting, and resources tonight in terms of how to develop a school budget. I have some items for you. I had 3 discussion boards. One was interview your administrator about fundraising, one about the budgeting process, and then locate a copy of your school budget. Those are fairly simple things to do. Your evidence artifact work obviously was SIP-D is due in discussion board for peer review. Your 2 peer reviews of OMAE are due in discussion board. And OMAE is due in assignment Dropbox and in task stream for evaluation. That's where we are. Remember, next week, we will not have a Zoom session because it's the break, but continue to work on your evidence artifact work. Please remember, try to stay up on your evidence artifact work. You can do my weekly discussion boards and questions at your own leisure, but make sure that you try to stay current with your evidence artifact work. All right, so that's where we are. Again, no Zoom session next week because of Thanksgiving break. We won't do that on Thanksgiving. All right. I can go ahead and close that one. And I can go ahead and close that one. New share. All right. First thing I want to cover tonight are the materials that I have for you. This is the practical application of budget laws. This is a law and finance course, and so this is financial law, and this is the day-to-day stuff that you need to know to stay currently employed or out of jail as a school administrator. This is the stuff that you need on a daily basis. Excuse me. So let me run through those for you. 288 says that you are to make available budgets and school improvement plans. Principals shall maintain a copy of the current budget and shall allow parents of children in the school and any other interested persons to review and obtain such documents. One of the reasons why I had you locate a copy of your school budget, every semester that I teach 603, I get students who tell me, well, our principal says that we don't release our budget. Yes, he does. Yes, she does. That's state law, that it has to be available. Any interested person that comes along is supposed to be handed a printed copy of your budget. Any parent that comes in your school is supposed to get a copy of that budget. It is not a secret. For some reason, we seem to have problems with that around this state, but state law says that it is to be made available to interested persons and parents. All right. Now, provision for disbursement of state money. All right. Stay with me on this one. When the state allots money to a school district for a school in terms of per pupil expenditure, and we're going to use round numbers here. Let's say it's $5,000 a year. It's actually more than that, but I want to use that because the numbers will make sense. All right, what happens is the state does not send the whole $5,000 up front. What they do is after the first month of school, when your PMR is sent to Raleigh electronically, Principal's Monthly Report, which is of attendance, the state reimburses your county, which paid to fund schools that first month. They reimburse at the rate of $500 per pupil. There's 10 school months. They only pay a month at a time, and they pay after the month is over. It's a modified accrual accounting system. Now, what's important to remember is they only pay for the kids that show up. They do not pay for the kids who are enrolled. So if you've got 1,000 kids in your school and your average daily membership is 95%, or you average 950 kids a day, that's how many the state funds. They don't give you the money for the kids on the roll. They only give you the money for the kids who are in attendance. So that's why it's important to get your attendance in every day and for it to be accurate. You don't want an audit to come along and find out that you're reporting students who are there or who aren't there as present, because you will have to, or the next principal will have to refund the money back to the state. The state frowns on padding enrollment numbers, or padding attendance numbers, because they pay based on how many kids show up every day. So you can't do that. But remember, money comes from the state in monthly installments back to the district. The district has to have enough operating capital on hand for at least the first month of school. Now, back in the good times before 2007, many times districts had up to 6 months of operating capital in reserve. Now they generally don't have but 1 or 1.5 months. So you can't make a mistake and not send your principal's monthly report. Of course, it's done electronically, but if there's no data being entered into Power School, there'll be no report to transmit. So you've got to have your master schedule in there for your school activity report, or SAR. You got to have your master schedule in there for that, and you got to have attendance in there for your daily attendance, or they won't send money for the students at your school that month, and that will not make the central office happy. So those things have to happen. So you have to have somebody who can translate your master schedule into Power School. That sounds fairly easy, but it's not. Many schools, the schedules become so intricate and multiple layers and mosaic, but Power School can't handle that. So you have to have somebody who can translate. Now, it's very important that it be right, that if it says Dale has 27 students this period, that Dale has 27 students. It can't be that if an audit is done, you are over your class size limits, but you didn't report that to the state. Your school activity report that's generated from your master schedule must accurately reflect where the kids are and in the correct numbers, and then your attendance numbers have to coincide with those. Your enrollment numbers have to coincide with those, and then your average attendance has to coincide with that. And all three of those things are checked monthly before the state cuts a check back to your district for the kids in your school. That gets a little sticky. You've got to make sure you do those things. Now, along with your money You your per pupil expenditure, you get a direct allotment to your school from the state, things like office supplies. We used to get a little staff development money, not much anymore, and some other things. And that money, that little bit of money that comes to you for operations, comes on average daily membership basis also. So you don't get, if you got 1,000 kids, you don't get paid for 1,000. If your attendance is 95, um, you get paid for that 950 kids that shown up. So every percentage point that you can go up on your attendance means more money for your district. So that's why attendance is important. All right. Each local school administrative unit shall establish and maintain an accounting system. It's a modified accrual basis of accounting. Every school has to have a budget and work in that same accrual system. Daily deposits, no money, all monies received daily have to be deposited that day, even ball game money at night if you're in a secondary school. Gate receipts have to be deposited same day. That's a hard and fast rule. That one will get you going if you're collecting money up around the school and it's staying in the school overnight. When I first taught school, I taught in a building that was built in that opened in 1926, and a high school, and the office had a big safe in it. We don't do that anymore. We don't have a big safe to put all the money in and go to the bank once a week. I guess back in those days it was difficult to get to the bank. It might have been an all-day trip for all I know. But in modern times, all money received has to be deposited each day, and all money has to be receipted that's received. Every year you will have an annual independent audit. An auditor will come out to your school and audit all of your accounts, not only your school account, but if you have any athletic or booster accounts, they'll also, you usually have two checks. One is your local money, and one is county money that's given to you. Everything that all the accounts that you have will be audited every spring. And one of the things that I heard of recently, a principal in a district not far from here got in trouble over trying to basically circumvent the purchase order system, where you would have to submit purchase orders and use the state contract system and buy off state contract. What they were doing is a person in the school was buying items and they were simply reimbursing that person. That sounds fairly innocuous, but in effect, what you're doing is you're circumventing the accounting system. You're circumventing the purchasing system to do that. So we don't do that. We don't have people buy stuff and write them personal checks. We use a purchase order system. That's part of the modified accrual basis of accounting. Is we have purchase orders that are approved to make sure that you're spending funds the right way out of the correct line items in your budget, that you're using the right pot of money when you buy something, and that you don't pay $500 for a toilet seat, that kind of thing, that you buy off state contract and you pay the right price. All right, moving on down, you have to produce all books and records. And what I was just talking about, conceal, falsify, refuse to deliver with intent. That's what I'm talking about. That's a class 1 misdemeanor. When you don't use the purchase order system, they consider that intent to conceal. So you better make sure that you do that. Each school has a treasurer. That's usually your financial secretary. Checks have to have principal signature and the financial, their double signature. Special funds of individual schools shall be deposited in an official depositor. That means you can't keep cash on hand, petty cash or any of that, and checks have to be written for everything. Have to be deposited and accounted for by the school money. Again, all monies have to be receipted and have to be accounted for by the school financial secretary. Special funds of individual schools includes, by way of illustration, not limited to funds received from gate receipts, sale of school annuals and newspapers, and dues of student organizations. So that's your that's your um, that's your special funds individual school, and then you have a general account that you buy other stuff out of. Usually you have fundraisers to raise that money. So you generally have two accounts. All schools have two. Some have more because they have athletics and boosters club. But you have your general account, and then you have your special fund of individual school accounts. Both of them require two signatures on those checks. Repair of school property, use of buildings for other than school purposes. You can't rent your building out. Now, there might be a community use of schools department in your school district, but you got to be careful about not renting your school out or loaning your school out because of the wear and tear, and the monies that it might run up, the cost for electricity or damage to the building, those kinds of things. So you can't just be letting groups come in and use your building willy-nilly. You have to make sure that you go through community use of schools. And local boards of education may adopt rules and regulations. They may enter into agreements permitting non-school groups to use the school, but that goes through community use of schools, and the board makes that decision. You do not. It is not your building. Your name is on the door, not the deed. Along with that, I think I have it later on in here, but along with that also covers people running a private business out of a school. It's okay for the carpentry class to build one of those buildings and sell it and bring the revenue back into the school. That's fine, but it wouldn't be okay for the carpentry teacher to be building birdhouses on the side or having students build birdhouses and then selling those and keeping the money for themselves. Can't do things like that. All monies that come in have to be receipted back to the school and put in those accounts. I know of a case where a teacher was running a photography business out of there was photography at one time was taught in CTE, Career and Technical Education. It stopped years and years ago, but the school had a photo lab, and so that teacher was using that photo lab since it wasn't being used anymore, was using it to run a private business. You can't do that. Again, that money was not coming into the office, wasn't being receipted, and that person was taking the money home. So you can't do things like that. It shall be the duty of local boards of education to provide classroom facilities. The reason why I've got that one in there, from time to time I'm asked about charter schools and why they get those used mobile units from the regular school district in the county that they're in. That's because charter schools are public schools, and the board must provide them classrooms. They don't have to give them buildings, don't have to give them auditoriums, gyms, ball fields, or any of that stuff, but they are supposed to provide classroom facilities. That's state law 521. And that's why you see so many charter schools initially start out with used mobile units or surplus mobile units from the local school district. That's where that comes from. Again, it's up to the local board of education to build and maintain school buildings. In 1965, the state of North Carolina got out of school building funding. The Leandro case, as I have alluded to before, was the poor districts basically sued the state and said that they needed to change the funding formula because the wealthy districts were able to put more local dollars in, and they were really being hurt by the state funding, and they also wanted the state to start helping with buildings again. The Leandro case ended up, the low wealth people lost their case, but the state did say we'll start an education lottery, and they have, and a very small portion of that money goes into a fund to do pork barrel projects, just one-off projects around the state, like build a cafeteria here or build a building there, something small. uh, in those low wealth districts, but the funding formula was not changed. And so the amount of money that goes from the state to school districts is per pupil based, whether you're a rich district or a poor district, whether your district can afford to pay for buildings and upkeep or not. You get the same amount from the state, and the state does not get involved in building or maintaining buildings other than those little grants from the lottery money, which is fairly insignificant at this point. Now, in the local, well, statewide political elections that just happened, I heard one of the candidates, he was advocating his platform, if elected, is that he would do away with corporate taxes. That would really hurt in some areas of the state. Capital funding comes again from county commissioners to the Board of Education. Board of Educations in North Carolina are unempowered. That means they don't have the power to levy taxes or and gather their own money for the school districts. They have to present a budget to the county commissioners, and the county commissioners give them money to run the schools. Where that money comes from for schools is from property tax, both private, residential, and from business, corporate property taxes. And it would really hurt the schools if, especially in some of the poorer areas where residential property taxes are very low because the worth or the value of the homes is low. The lion's share of the property taxes that go to school come from corporate. So that's who would be hurt when you say, well, that sounds good. That might foster a better business climate in the state. I'm afraid that that would really hurt districts in terms of their ability to maintain and expand their school facilities, because that's where money from the school facilities come from, is from corporate and residential property taxes. Now, I'm going to cover some specific board policies. Remember, when you're talking about following the law in educational management, operations and management, federal law comes first, then state law, then local board policy, then best practices, and then teacher input. That's kind of the way it goes. You've been working on the OMA this semester, and so the rationale for strengths and weaknesses and improvement in your school operations has to be based on either to better comply with federal law, to better comply with state law, to better comply with local board policy. It's a best practice like teaching reading before lunch, not having mentors and mentees with the same planning period so they can observe each other teach, and then teacher input. That's kind of the way it goes. Now, every school district has their own administrative policy or board policy that go along with the state laws that speak to some individual things. And so your district, this is from Charlotte-Mecklenburg, where I worked the last half of my career, and that where I was high school principal and in the central office. And so here are some things, and your district has something similar, so you need to find all your board policies in the district where you work, or when you become an administrator, about money. All fundraising campaigns involving students, either elementary, middle, or high, must be approved by the principal and the superintendent or his designee. That means you can't just be teachers can't just decide to have a fundraiser. Principals can't just decide to have a fundraiser. Everything that you're going to do in fundraising is supposed to be budgeted for and is proposed in your budget and approved before the school year starts. Again, I heard of a local principal who's in trouble over having unapproved fundraising activities. Well, if you didn't get approval, that's not going to go well for you. The superintendent or designee will monitor all fundraising activities, and you still have to follow the same accounting procedures of the school system. Students should not be placed in a position of handling money. Now, I read a lot in discussion board about, well, our principal lets the PTO or PTA handle all of our fundraising. That way we don't have to worry about it. That gives me pause. I'm concerned about that in that you never know what will happen in court, but if the money gets gone, folks are always looking for somebody to blame. And if you didn't exercise fiscal control as a principal, you delegated it to somebody else to do it, and the money got gone, I would not be surprised if you didn't end up in court, or if you didn't end up in the personnel office over that one. I know that it probably shouldn't be that way. If you delegate the PTA, and if they steal the money, that's on them. But you're in charge, and this is one of those things where I can't just tell you don't do that, and that definitely bad things will happen to you if the money gets gone. And the PTA is the one, somebody in the PTA took it, but I would be concerned about that. I guess I'm an operations person, but I know of cases where PTA presidents embezzled the funds, and the principal ended up having to answer for that. So that's you need to follow all procedures, no matter who's doing the fundraising. In my opinion, regardless of who's doing the fundraising, if it's coming to your school, you need to make sure you follow all accounting procedures of the school system. It says that the superintendent or his designee will monitor all fundraising activities, and follow the accounting procedures of the school system. So I would argue that in CMS, if you let the PTA do the fundraising and the money got gone, that there would be repercussions. I know from my time in the central office, a couple of cases where there were repercussions. All receipts by individual schools shall be handled in accordance with modified accrual accounting system. Fundraising at the middle and high schools have to be approved. They submit during the first month anticipated fundraising activities, projected revenues and expenditures, has to go to the area superintendent for final approval. If approved, these activities are incorporated into the school budget. That's why I'm talking about. If you're having activities and that money is going to be incorporated, is coming into your budget at your school, then you're going to be responsible for the accounting and to make sure the rules are followed. The following fundraising activities are recommended to encourage community club, class and school participation: art festivals, carnivals, dances, car wash, barbecues, concerts, film, student, faculty games, trying to get away from candy sales and wrapping paper and those kinds of things. The use of instructional time for the purposes of fundraising shall not take place without the approval of the principal, and the principal better get the superintendent's sign off, and the superintendent's not going to sign off. See, what you don't want to happen is you trade state dollars for local dollars. And let me explain that concept to you. State pays teachers. We take teachers' time away from them, and they pay them to teach instructional time. We take that instructional time and we convert it into fundraising locally so that we have money to put in our budget. So what we've done is we've taken the state's money and didn't give them back in return for their money what they were paying for, which was instruction, in order to get money that we have control of locally in our budget, that nobody can tell us how we can spend it. But it's a bad trade. As expensive as teachers are, it's probably a 10-to-1 trade. For every $10 the state pays that teacher, we're probably only getting one back in fundraising. Might be less than that. State does not like that. They frown upon that, using instructional time for fundraising. The superintendent will rarely approve something that uses instructional time. Instructional related activities such as auto mechanics, tailoring, cosmetology should not be used for fundraising, but a nominal charge will be permitted to offset costs. That goes back to the carpentry fellow. You're not supposed to be doing that as a fundraiser. You do it as a learning guide. You sell the house in the end, and you can get your cost of your materials back, but you're not supposed to be doing those things to try to make money or fundraising. And you say, but that's a wonderful thing, Dale. Well, it is a wonderful thing to teach students the skills to build a house, but what happens is the local company that builds outbuilding doesn't like the competition. and they pay business property or corporate property tax and fund the schools, and they're getting a double whammy. They're paying taxes and you're competing with them. So you shouldn't be doing that kind of thing where you're competing with a local business for your fundraisers. You can say, well, Dale, but car washes, yeah, but having kids get out and swap a little water on the car is not, that's not going to hurt Auto Bell. But building outbuildings might hurt the local manufacturer of outbuildings. If you do ball games or events where you have ticket sales, they're supposed to be pre-numbered, and you have to do a reconciliation of the amount of money and the number of tickets sold, and you have to put the money, you have to deposit the money that night. You have to have a designated ticket manager who does all that stuff. You can put it in the bag in a night depository, like at the bank, and then go back and get it the next day. Receipts shall be deposited in the school account on a daily basis. Use of funds raised. All funds raised should be used to benefit the school program. All funds should be used for projects designated prior to the fundraising. It's supposed to be in your budget request, what we're going to use it for. All right, this one speaks to what I was talking about before, running a private business, using school facilities or letting people do that. All employees of the Board of Education are prohibited from soliciting or selling or any non-school authorized items during work time or in work areas, selling, trading, distributing, or dealing in instructional supplies equipment. Employees are further prohibited from tutoring for compensation students who they teach regularly. Can't have a session in your class after school for your students or other students in school where you charge them for tutoring, or from work students who they do not exercise such during work. And you can't tutor during the regular school day, even if they aren't your students. You can't tutor at the school, not for money. Privately. Now, if there's a tutoring program and you've got a grant and you're paid teachers, that's different, but they can't run the private business. Employees are prohibited from rendering services or engaging in soliciting promises of employment to accept outside employment interest when the private interests are doing business with the Board of Education. You're prohibited from soliciting customers, clients, or engaging in any private business or service on board property, using their vehicles, material supplies, buildings, or such things. You can't be involved in a private business or soliciting for, and you can't enter into contracts with or accept favors from people trying to do business with the school. So those are the things that trip you up more than anything else. There's more than this, but these are the ones that you need to make sure that you understand and know. All right. Okay, share screen. I have a good PowerPoint on how to develop a school-based budget here. I don't want to, and it goes over the sources of where money comes from that goes into your budget, the federal money, the state money, local incomes comes from property taxes. Very little comes from sales tax. Mostly it comes from property taxes, both private, residential, and corporate. But this is kind of a how-to build your school budget. And we run zero-based budgeting in North Carolina, and what that means is if we have $10, we budget $10. We don't have leftovers or go to a reserves, capital reserves, or any of that. As all of you know, you've heard, if you've been in the business more than a year or two, you've heard, we got to have everything spent by March. If it doesn't, we lose it. That's because we have zero-sum budgeting. You can't stockpile monies. You've got to spend the money that comes in on what you said you were, and it's got to be spent yearly. It's not ethical to raise or take money this year and spend it 2 years down the road on those kids. So we run zero-based budgeting in North Carolina, and this goes through everybody's role in the budget. This is a how-to to develop your budget. You know, your needs assessment. You look at your test scores, those kinds of things. So this is a really good one. This is one of those toolkit things that you need to have. This is the step by step of how you should do a school budget. Now, the other one that I have for you tonight is this is one just to save. This is the big picture. This is when you get to the central office. This is about developing a budget for a school district. I did include this one. This might be something you might want to look at. It might answer some questions about why people do what they do at the central office. But this is how you run a school district in terms of the budget. So if you want to know why these decisions are made at the central office in your district, this PowerPoint may offer some insight into some of those kinds of things. But this one is for when you become superintendent. The one that I just shared with you, this one is how to build a school-based budget. You had some reading this week on that, but this is a good PowerPoint that kind of summarizes it. Always, I like to have something that summarizes everything and kind of pulls it together. So make sure that you take a look at the things that I just covered. Again, unless you work like Luke, unless you work in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, you need to find the board policies on finance and money handling for your district, and they're available online. To make sure that you know all the rules and the wherefores. Again, I would encourage you to make sure that you actively participate, even if the PTA or PTO is doing the fundraising, that you're an active participant in that, and that you run the money through the school accounts. If the money's coming to the school, you'll sleep better at night. It'll be more work, but you'll sleep better at night knowing that everything's handled the way it's supposed to be. Here's how you develop a budget. I won't go any further than that on it. So I guess that's all that I have for you tonight. I don't want to overstay my welcome here. All right, so we have covered competency folio again, task stream. Look under intern materials for examples of those proofs that go in your competency folio. If you're having trouble with your evidence artifacts, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I will help you through that if your comments aren't the best, or if you get needs revision back when you submit your work. Let me know and I'll be glad to help you. Again, we will not obviously have class next week on Thanksgiving, so I will see you in 2 weeks. Hope everybody has a good evening and a good holiday, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Good night.